Hi YouTube, welcome. My name is Dustin Apple, aka White River Rambo, and if this is your first time ever joining my channel, go right there in that bottom corner and click that little black and red Rambo box. That'll make you subscribe to the channel, and you can always come back and see me. Today we're talking about SD cards. Okay, now this can be highly confusing, alright, but I'm going to try to simplify it for you. It doesn't matter whether you're, running a handy cam, you like to run a GoPro, or even if you're buying SD cards for your trail cameras that possibly do video, or they're just for pictures, you need to know what kind of SD card to buy. Not only that, you need to know the speed at which each one of these operate and how to get the best bang for your buck. So today we're going to try to help you figure that out. Okay guys, before we can start recommending what style of SD card that you needed to buy, we need to understand how to read the information that's on the SD card. As you see on the left hand side of each card, there's a number, except for this generic one. Okay, that is one thing I will start by saying: don't buy generic cards. Make sure you buy something that has a brand name. And so, eventually we're going to throw this card away, just because it's a cheap generic card and highly likely that it could be corrupted easily. But on the left side of the card, okay, you see the MB/S. That's megabyte per second. All right. Now on the left-hand side of the card, the number that we're looking at here, this is the number that the card is read. Okay. So when you put this card in your computer, it's the speed at which the computer can retrieve information from the card. All right. Now the information that's on the right side, like this one right here, says SDXC C10. Okay, this side of the card is the writing speed. Now, if you'll notice, I'm not sure if you can see it. I'm sure you can see this one. It says micro SDHC. Now, the original SD card was a standard SD. Okay, and it was capable of memory space up to 2 gig. A micro SDHC is capable up to 32 gig, and a SDXC are the top of the line, and they've not even released the biggest size cards right now in that category. So anytime you're shopping for a card, if you see SDXC, it's going to be your bigger cards that are above 32 gig. Even on this cheap card, you see 32 gig, and it is an HC. All these down here, a 32 gig is an HC, and these two 16s are HCs. So really the SDXC is just another way to say how big of a card it is. Now, one of the most important things that you need to look for when you're buying a card is this big C with a 10 in it. Okay, this is one of the ways that it's referred to as the speed class of the card. How fast can your device write speed on this card? Okay, class 10 is the highest, and it is recommended for all video purposes. Okay, so if you're running any type of video at all, for the price, the class 10 is the highest, and you should always seek a class 10 card. And honestly, there's no reason to accept anything lower. Lowers would be an 8, a 6, or a 4, and those are fine for pictures, because it doesn't matter how much speed that you need to be able to write the information on the card. So another classification, and you don't see it on these cheaper cards, is the U3. Okay, the U refers to, once again, the speed. It's the UHS speed in which the card can write on. Now 3 is the highest. There's only a 1 and a 3 though. I've never seen a 2, but a U1 would be fine for 1080p 720 video. It would be perfectly fine for that. But if you're running anything in 4K or even 2700 or 4K or above, you need to make sure that it has a UHS rating of U3. Now another speed rating is the I symbol. Okay, you see SDX, and there's an I, there's an I, there's an I. Most of the cards that you're going to find are a single I. Okay, but there is a higher rating than that, and it's a 2 or 2 Roman numerals is II. Okay, that would actually be better, and if you are doing 4K, seek out that II class rating. I'm really surprised that this card doesn't have an II class rating, because it does have a UHS rating of 3. But anyway, the right side again is the writing speed, and the left side is the reading speed. The big number, okay, the big number of course is how big the card is, the memory space. In my opinion, for most situations, and providing that your device can support a 64 gig card, I'd recommend that you buy a 64 gig card, because honestly, the price of a 64 gig card, they're really pretty cheap nowadays, unless you're running older style GoPros. Some of the older style GoPros won't work with a 64 gig card. Hero 3s and lower, I know a 32 is as big as you can put in them. So watch that, especially in a micro line, and make sure that your device is doesn't have a limitation on card space, because if you try to put a 64 gig card in a GoPro Hero, it'll work and it says it's fine, and then you go to put it in your computer and it's all corrupt and you can't read those files. So been there, done that. It's kind of hard to swallow. But so there's a couple things to to take in mind when you're shopping for a card. For those of you who are running high-end video, in a 4K or something like that, then you're going to need a good reading speed. And as you can see, this card right here has a 90 megabyte per second reading. Now, one thing to take into consideration if you're running a DSLR, in DSLRs you have settings inside where you can run in all I or IPB. In all I, a larger version, it's not compressed like IPB is. All I runs in 90 megabytes per second, and IPB only runs in 30 megabytes per second. So depending on your camera settings, can depend on how much speed you need to be able to write on. And actually, your camera will write on the card fine, but you may have trouble getting your computer to read it at the speed which you need, and that's what this number is right here. So once again, the number on the left side is when you put the card in the computer, how fast is it going to be. So for anybody taking pictures, this speed really, doesn't affect you a whole lot. You don't need to spend the extra money on a high-end card like this one in the center here, this gold SanDisk Extreme. You can get away with a card like this. but always buy a class 10. Okay. Once again, we're going to take away this card just because it is a knockoff. There's no brand name on there. You're better off buying a brand name card. It's been my experience. Just that's you're just asking for trouble in these cheaper cards. What about in trail cameras? If you take any video in your trail cameras, I would look for a medium, something a mediocre card at the least. You can get away with a U1. Make sure it's class 10, of course, but a U1, something that's in the 50 megabyte per second range will be perfectly fine. But if you're only taking pictures, you don't need the added speed. So these two cards, okay, we got a 30 megabyte and a 48 megabyte. They're both class 10s. This one's the class 10s over here. But and those are both good cards, and actually those cards would be fine for video up to 1080p. But if you plan on doing anything higher than 1080p, you want to make sure that you've got the highest end possible card. And the only thing that this card is lacking is the class 2 certification on the UHS rating. But this would be a very good card, for running any type of video. So, guys, I hope that helps you understand some of the numbers on an SD card. It can be very confusing at times. You don't want to just buy the biggest space available if you can't, read it at the speed that you need to off your computer, or possibly write at the speed that your device needs to write on. If these numbers aren't correct, given the device that you have and what you're planning on doing with the card, then this number is useless. Hope that helps, guys. Stay safe. We'll see you.